It's nice to see so many people at a board meeting. I know it's not really for the board meeting, but that's okay. We'll start with Superintendent's report.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. We've got a couple of special things going on, not the least of which is a celebration of our Students of the Month. We also have some teachers and teaching assistants that are here tonight to watch the Board of Education act on their tenure recommendations. So we've got some very important moments happening for some very important people tonight. Also, I'd like to point out some storyboards that we have on the side. If you've been seeing your email, your text, and also social media, and we also put some information in mailboxes recently. We've got a project coming up for the May vote called Vision 2020, where we're proposing some work to be done at each of the 3 schools. So I encourage you to spend some time looking at the literature, reading the information, visiting our website. There's a Vision 2020 tag that you can click on, and I'll take you to a myriad of information regarding this project. The biggest takeaways is we focus on safety and security. We also focus on some key academic areas that truly need some renovation. Some of our arts spaces, some of our music spaces, and there's some athletic areas and physical education areas that do need some attention and some upgrading. So we're proposing those changes to occur with a positive vote from the public in May. And I also want to make sure we point out that there's a key timing element here. A substantial portion, about 70% of the project, will be paid for by New York State. We also have a decent amount of money that we've been storing in our bank that will pay for another substantial portion of that. So the local share that we'll have to make annual payments on is a relatively low amount. But what's more important is that the timing of that new loan would coincide with 2 other loans that will be paid off. And one of those 2 loans is a relatively large loan to the tune of $1.2 million, and it's not aided money, meaning New York State doesn't pay any of the $1.2 million, because that was a loan that was taken out to pay for a tax certiorari agreement that was put upon the school district when Central Hudson grieved their taxes. So when that tax payment goes away, and the other tax payment goes away, we will actually be able to replace a small piece of that debt for aided debt, meaning New York State pays for 70% of the cost, do the work on Vision 2020, and our total debt payment will drop by over $800,000 at the same time. So we're really in a key point here as far as our financial side of things goes, where we can pay off a large, substantial amount of loans, refinance some of it to do the $19.5 million worth of work, and see our debt payment drop by over $800,000. Key moment. We ask you to take a look at the website, ask the information that you need. I will be more than happy to supply you with anything that you can't find there. Contact me through my office, but I'd also like to advertise May 8th. We have an open house at the middle school at 6 o'clock. So if you're interested in coming out, you can take a look at the facility, take a look around the different spaces, and ask any questions that you have, and we'll be more than happy to answer those for you. In addition, tonight, the Board of Education is going to spend a little bit of time deliberating the final pieces of our 2019-2020 school budget. So we anticipate that the Board of Education will be adopting that budget tonight. And with that, I don't have anything else.
Okay, we'll move on to Student of the Month.
How about we begin with the elementary school?
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Good evening, everyone, and happy almost May. We're thrilled to be here, and we are very excited to have Mrs. Stolter and Mrs. Weckman speak about our Marlboro Elementary School Student of the Month for April, and that is Marley Lanzoni, 5th grader. And Marley is from a family of teachers, and she's got 2 or 3 rows full of people here to cheer her on, along with her brother, Marco Silvio. So Marley, come on up, and we will hear all about you, honey.
I'm honored to present Marley Lanzoni with the award for Student of the Month. Marley is currently a fifth grader in Mrs. Bogacik's class. For the past year, Marley has participated in our library club, shelving and helping younger students find and check out books at the end of the school day every day. She knows the library inside and out, and I've often told her I hope she will be a librarian someday. Along with library, Marley is an outstanding student. Every class, I can count on her to be 100% engaged, always smiling and participating. She is kind to everyone and works hard at everything she does. Marley is one of the 2 girls in STEAM Club, and she has finished in first place from our last 2 challenges, outwitting all of the boys. Yes. Lastly, my favorite thing about Marley is the immense love that she has for her family. She loves her cousins. She walks one of them to class every day. She loves to share fun family activities she does with her parents, her brother, aunts, and uncles, and most of all, her beloved grandparents. I'm going to start crying here. Such a wonderful family in this community, and you can see here tonight as they're all here to support Marley. I applaud you all, especially Mom and Dad, for raising such a wonderful young lady. Mrs. Weckman and I will miss you so much next year, Marley. I congratulate you on a much-deserved Student of the Month award.
How about we'll bounce up to the high school?
I'd like to invite up Emily Borchert, our Student of the Month. So Emily is a talented flautist. She's going to go to New Paltz next year to study biochemistry. It wasn't enough to take one science. You're going to put 2 of them together. So congratulations. Mrs. Natoli, our World Language Department Chair, was unable to make it tonight. She gave me a prepared statement, so I'm going to go ahead and read those things that she said about you. It is my pleasure to award the World Language Department Student of the Month to Emily Borchert. Emily's sister was honored in this way a few years ago, so I guess language skills run in her family. As a sophomore, Emily was going to host a student from Spain, but when they started communicating before the trip, the boy fell in love with her, so we didn't think it was the best idea. However, it's just one example of the lengths that she will go to speak Spanish. Last year, she reached out to Mr. Murphy at the middle school, who she did not know, to have conversations once a week. She Skypes and FaceTimes with people in Spanish. She speaks to people who are employed by her family farm so she can absorb different accents of Spanish speakers, and she watches Spanish movies on Netflix. Emily is in the National Honor Society as well as president of the Spanish National Honor Society. When she was speaking in Spanish during the induction ceremony, our keynote speaker leaned over to me to comment. Her pronunciation is really good, which it absolutely is. In class, she offers great insight into vocabulary and grammar, and she provides support to students who struggle more than she does. She exemplifies what it means to be a student of language, and it has been my honor to teach her in Spanish 3 and College Spanish 202 here at Marlborough High School. Congratulations, Emily. Congratulations. So they're going to order for certificate. I'll take a picture.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, our middle school honoree Alexis DeLauro was not able to make it tonight, so we'll honor at another meeting, okay, Deb? I would actually like to point out that this is a special time each month when we honor our students of the month. When you hear things like they know the library inside and out, they watch movies in Spanish because they love Spanish that much, complete college Spanish courses, talented flautists, biochem majors, member of the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Club in elementary school, and Outwit the Boys. These are some fantastic people that are coming up through our schools, and we're so proud of them. We're so appreciative of the families sending us such wonderful people. Thank you so much. Our honored students, thanks for being such great Dukes. We truly appreciate it, and I'm glad you're here tonight, so congratulations.
Okay, we'll move on to our student representatives report. Matt?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Congratulations to the Student of the Month. Just one big thing I want to touch on tonight. At the last board meeting during our budget presentation, there was a list posted of possible add-ons to our school budget that the board had the option to pick up, somewhat like a menu of things to order per se. So I'd like to kind of like be the waiter, I guess, and kind of list the things I think are most important and beneficial to our students and things I think maybe we can hold off on. First and foremost, I think we have to go ahead and add that .4 to the elementary school physical education teacher. As much as we may not think so or think so, the state sets the quotas for a reason. Obviously, they have people working on this 24/7, and we should absolutely strive to meet those quotas. Furthermore, there was a large discussion on where's the best place to add that time, and after listening to the discussion again on the replay, I think the recess is the best option for that. I completely understand the argument that was presented concerning the importance of free play on mental health, but the intention, which I think was previously mentioned by others, is it for not to be as structured as a normal gym class, which will give students some space to do what they want to do as long as they remain active. One thing I would like to say on that, I know I would like to keep the groups somewhat like separated, because I know like in typical recess, you know, you have like a kids who maybe treat recess like it's the Super Bowl or Game 7 of the World Series like I did, and I know some other kids still do. And then you got the kids who maybe it's just a relaxing time. Let's do a nice leisurely walk or kick a ball around. So I would like to see that still hold true, but definitely the more structure has to go in the recess. Additionally, if you do this, I think you may see a positive unintended consequence. I'm willing to bet that if you ask Mrs. Walsh or Miss Kaplan back there about the kids that maybe end up in her office for not so good reasons, a significant portion of those issues probably arise on the playground. So I think you may see a decrease in the number of people going into Mrs. Walsh's office for not so good things, so that's always a plus. Item number 2, I think, which should be added to our budget, is the shared technology education teacher. In the past few years, the school district has really bought in and started pushing the STEM and STEAM programs in classes, and we've really seen a tremendous increase in course offerings from, you know, basic general technology courses to now at the high school we have computer programming and engineers and robotics course. Middle school we have a STEAM class with STEAM programs at the elementary school, and I definitely think that's the direction the world is trending, and I think we need to keep on that pace, especially, fingers crossed, if we're able to complete our Vision 2020 project. In that includes a whole new tech room at Marlboro Middle School, so what better way to christen that, hopefully, than with expansion of programs. Number 3 on the list was the sports and entertainment marketing elective at Marlboro High School. Going back to September, I put out a survey asking, you know, students of the Marlboro Central School District what kind of interests they had, and one of the most common responses, at least 30% of the responses on my survey, was a desire for more kind of fun, practical, real-world electives, and I think this falls into that category. There's a really strong desire to take it. It was already like put out on the course selection sheet. and there was a boatload of sign-ups, so many they might have to turn some kids away from the course. Personally, I'm a huge proponent of children challenging themselves and adding more to their plate, especially for juniors and seniors who seem to be satisfied with only taking a few classes and leaving before noon because they're already done with a lot of their core curriculum. So I think this course would entice some students and hopefully encourages them to pick up some of those extra classes. Finally, the last thing at the bottom of my list is the Mandarin Chinese. This is the one thing that I'm the least high on because, first of all, I want to say I'm all for expanding our language program and diversifying what we teach, because obviously we do need more than one language, and Mandarin is the way of the future in business and stuff. But I can't conclusively ensure that there is a demonstrated interest in that language to make a $40,000 commitment to it. I know by talking and some of the surveys and student input panels of a few students who were willing to sign up, and possibly if a kid goes into a guidance counselor and sees it on a course selection sheet and they don't really want the same old like all the classmates, they're going to put down the Mandarin Chinese. But I can't guarantee its interest like I can with the technology in the STEM or the sports and entertainment marketing. So for that, I think if there's not enough room, that the Mandarin should be held off on compared to other things. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. We'll move on to the budget presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. So we're going to kind of recap a lot of information that we've seen before. Tax levy right now is at the tax cap, 2.61% is a statutory limit, an increase of about $900,000 over last year's tax levy. Estimated tax increases, these are very rough at this point because we don't have all the current information. These are based on a $200,000 sale price home, basic star and enhanced star, which covers most of any homeowner property. Historical tax levy increases. As we remember, we had a period of 3 years where we saw a continuing decrease in the levy every year. It was just in the 18-19 school year last year we were able to see an increase, and then now looking at a second year of an increase. Again, putting us for the tax levy still below where the levy was in the 14-15 school year. Again, this is the same information we've seen before, and the information is on the website. The approximate areas of increased costs, these are approximate numbers, but it gives you a good idea of seeing where significant cost increases are. We do experience some decreases in ERS and TRS due to a reduction in the employee contribution rate, which is the amount that the district is required to contribute to the retirement plans. And we see a continuing decrease on debt service due mostly to refinancing debt a few years ago. A summary of revenues and expenditures, and again, I know it's hard to read, but all the information is on the district's website. This is the legally required method of presenting the budget, the three-part budget comparison. So we see the 18-19 budget compared to the proposed 19-20 budget, an increase of approximately $1.3 million. We also have the anticipated contingent budget. We are required, if the budget were to fail 2 times, adopt a contingent budget, and we're required to keep the administrative component the same percentage as the last approved budget. So we see these numbers staying at 8.95%. And this was the list of possible additions. So right now the budget numbers reflect everything that is not highlighted in yellow as being incorporated into the proposed budget. So still up for discussion are the technology teacher and the .4 physical education teacher. And then we do have our budget hearing on May 9th at 7:30 PM right here. And again, the budget vote will be on Tuesday, May 21st in this room from 6 AM to 9 PM. So I'm not sure if you want to have discussion now or you want to wait until we get to the budget adoption section to talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. So we left off, and then Pat's provided all of us with, we wanted to see what it did going on the out years. So the question to the board as a whole is, do we want to add, change, delete? Since our last meeting, this was the area we were at. This would be the time, so that when we get to the actual adoption, we have a number that we're working with.
Wasn't the plan to see the presentation of the charts with the 5-year outlook tonight?
No, we asked that they provide us with the 5-year outlook.
With no presentation? Is that what the plan was?
Yeah.
That wasn't my understanding.
Okay.
Because I couldn't understand, I had a million questions when I read these. So,
That's fine, so go ahead and ask.
do you have them on soft copy? Can you kind of give a general understanding of
I
what
mean, basically, I can tell you from what I just looked at is the difference between the two is a difference of, I believe it may have been $140,000 on your sheets, between what the proposed amount is and then what it looks like adding these two positions in. And over
140,000 where? Can you bring at
Yeah,
least
budgeted,
one?
On
I don't
budgeted
have that.
expenditures.
Budgeted expenditures
In
from,
the yellow highlighted columns, the changes there.
From
is where you
scenario
see the
1 to
budget
scenario 2.
expenditures.
Okay, but I didn't need the charts for that, it's right there. But I thought you were going to show the outlook and the impact on the 5 years. And
That's all
where
on-
where your position was going to be, where your recommendation was not to go with these extra.
that's all on the charts you were
The-
provided. You have to look at the total reserves and fund balance over the
So
period of time.
if you go across where it says total fund balance, the bottom one, that's where our end number is in fund balance each year. So we still, the low year, our lowest year in the fund balance is the 22-23 school year, which would take us down to $3.9 million in fund balance. Whereas if we didn't do it, we'd be at 4.5 million. That's the low year, because you notice in the next year, we start to increase again. The fund balance starts to tick back up. And when you get out, which again, Pat's talked about, over the years, these are, when you get out past a year or two, it really becomes questionable, as because he's using his crystal ball to figure out aid and rates and everything else. In the I lost my spot. In the 25-26 school year, the difference becomes about $1 million in fund balance. So the total fund balance line is where you see where it would change. Because your growth rates are all still the same based on the cap. Nothing changes with any of those. It's just in your fund balance would be affected by that.
So what's your concern there, Pat? That
Well,
if we were to add this in, that the fund balance becomes at a level over the next few years?
My concern is that we're continuing to run planned deficits. We're allocating over $4 million of fund balance and reserves for the 1920 budget. So from a fiscal point of view, my concern is that we're continuing to just add more fund balance and reserves while we're still running a planned deficit. I feel more comfortable financially if we were to wait till we got to a point where we start to run a planned surplus to discuss, program additions beyond what the superintendent's recommended.
So you could apply that same logic to this capital plan, because it's a $400,000 cost to us, even though there's still $850,000 less. So you still have that same view out there too?
No, because the capital plan is different, because what we're doing is we're replacing existing debt which is unaided with aided debt. So we're able to run the capital plan with no anticipated impact on long-term fund balance or reserves.
Plus, remember, the capital plan won't finance and hit our finance side until 23 or so?
Correct. When we've started running a planned surplus. I mean, that's part of the reason we plan to run the surplus at that point, is because the unaided debt gets replaced with aided debt.
There's no question on the value of the positions. Matt actually did a really nice job of explaining some of the students' perspectives on it, and our principals spent a decent amount of time looking at both of these positions over the last couple of years. Both of these positions have been on the table for discussion now for some time. It's purely, right now, the simple decision of the board to decide, do we want to add these positions in now, or do we want to defer them to another time? I don't think that anyone on any side of the dais here can argue that these are not quality positions and will absolutely benefit our children. So that's off the table. It becomes, is this the timing, or is there another time that's the timing, which is basically the same discussion we had last year. So it really boils down to that.
Yeah, and then the other thing is when we talk about fund balance, that fund balance plus reserves is over the 4% because we're bringing the money back and forth each year based on what we believe our surpluses will be. And after next year, we stop assigning, we start to make considerable drops in how much we're assigning. The 21-22, we go down to 2.6, then 2.4. So it's just this year and next year that we're assigning $4 million.
Correct.
And what line are you looking at?
If you look at right below total expenditures where it says assigned fund
Assigned
balance,
fund balance, yeah, okay.
that's
got
the money we're using from our reserves each year to offset the cost. You know, so by the 25-26 school year, we're really down to 1.7, and our surplus, our reserves are 3.4. So we're well to the plus in that area.
So what it looks to me is the 140K or 130K just gets run out the years. The difference every year between one of your charts to the other is about 130, 140.
It would be that plus the growth
Plus a
every year.
little bit of compounded
Correct.
growth, right.
Compounded growth
Because
of
140 times the 7 is 980, or 130, I should say. So there's compounded growth.
Yeah, there's, you know, you get a 1.5% increase on each thing. So it's not like it's 140 times 140 times 140 each year. It's really just that plus that little percentage. So.
But the cumulative impact is
Right.
right.
So, anybody else have questions or positions or?
I'm just going to say that, you know, Mike, you just said it, that we had the same discussion last year. It's been a discussion for years. It's just keep kicking the can down the road. At some point, you know, I just think it has to be, the leap needs to be made. So I'm not sure if this is the best time or not, but it's, how much further do you kick it down the road, is my point.
So the beauty of it being a board is it's going to be pretty much, you know, it's a democracy. I'm actually leaning towards the side with Pat. If Pat's recommending that we don't, I'm going to have to go with what Pat's recommendation is. I would love to see the positions. However, I think we've done without it this long. And like Mike said, there's nobody up here that doesn't want them.
Right.
I just don't think the timing is right. So for me, it would be a no, but I fully support the budget, and if this board decides that they want to go with the positions, then so be it.
So when would you recommend it would be the right time, Pat?
I think once we get to the point when we start running planned surpluses rather than planned deficits, which I believe is maybe the 22-23 school year there.
22, 23. So the surplus is indicated by what? I still see a deficit in terms, negative, oh, the operational deficit.
So once that operational deficit becomes
where the
negative.
starts, I got you.
23, 24 is the first time you have a negative.
Right.
Yeah, I see it.
So I would feel more comfortable as we approach that position and that number becomes more firm for us the closer we get to that. I'm not necessarily saying that we'd have to wait till that year, but I think, you know, with the 4 million that we're applying right now, that it might not be the most prudent time fiscally. You know, that's I take the position just financially. I'm not reflecting any program aspect of that.
And the 800K that comes up during the year of the debt reduction, 21 to 22, that's taken into account in these numbers?
Yes.
John? I'm good. Okay, well, just so we all realize, when we talk about where we want to go, the putting in or not putting in is not, we have to decide as a group whether or not we want to increase the number or not increase the number. The problem becomes, and this will be an issue, is if there's 5 of us tonight. If 3 of us are in favor with adding the money in and 2 aren't, the question is that going to be a yes or no on the overall budget? Because we can't pass a budget without 4 votes. You have to have a majority of the total number of board members to pass a budget. So it sounds like Russell's good with adding, John's good with adding, you and John aren't in favor of adding.
I haven't given an opinion, but to be honest with you, Frank is right. I agree. I just look at these numbers and I see a minimal impact, and I think we have a little more leeway there that we could take some risk on in the next couple of years that we don't, because Pat tends to be risk adverse, which he should be in his position, and I've always had that position with Pat since I met him, so it's not a surprise there. But I think I agree with adding them. Looking at these numbers doesn't tell me, oh, we can't do it, or there's a glaring reason not to. Both sides, I've been back and forth on this for a while, but generally I'm a yes.
Okay, so then I think we, as a group, we have enough, because I'm in favor, because again, it's when we look at our deficit that we're running, whether it's 2.1 this year, 1.7, that $140,000 in these next 2 budgets, before we drop down to a $300,000 deficit, which unfortunately in a $54 million budget is nothing. You know, in the big picture, it's a lot of money for any one person to have to pay. When you're looking at a $54 million budget, and we say we're running a deficit, we know, because we are turning money back every year, it's a deficit just in case.
Well, we're allocating the 4 million with the anticipation of a 1.7 million deficit.
Right. So, okay. So we're good. We're going to go with option 2, and for when we get to the budget vote point, I believe we're 4-1.
That's part of what I was kind of clarifying. It's a democracy. So the question for me was whether we're adding it. I fully support the budget. The majority of the board wants the 2 positions, so when you get your budget vote, you'll have a 5-0.
Yeah, I was comfortable with it. Yeah,
It wouldn't be a 4-1.
Yep.
You'll have what you need for it.
Okay.
We will need to amend the property tax report card that's listed on the agenda, because that did not reflect these numbers, but I'll work them up through the rest of the meeting.
You got about 5 minutes.
That's
Pat.
all it'll take. That's
Okay.
fine.
These all people are waiting for more important things.
Yeah, that's after that anyway. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pat.
Yep.
Just before we close on that, is there any that we want to discuss removing, or we're good with just adding these on?
Thought we pretty much beat the rest of those items. I know what
Yeah,
Matt
we
had
did
talked
last-
about, but I think we had really talked about all the rest of the items at the last meeting, and
Okay,
we really just left those 2 items what was in the air.
All right.
Hey, Mike, just real quick, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to phrase this right. The lack of technology where we're lacking, and for the gym credits that we need for the state, what are the implications basically with the state if they right.
So
Well, they know it's not met.
Right. What he's referring to is that there's a required minimum number of minutes for physical education in each elementary grade level. It's a calculus by the state. Right now, we're short by a little bit in each grade level. One way you can make up for that deficit is to have children in the elementary school have an additional gym period, phys ed period. Another way you can make up for that time is to add in a physical education teacher during the lunch periods and have that teacher spend time with some structured recess activities for children that can kind of help organize activities, and that counts towards physical education hours then. So the option that we've chosen up here as a proposal is to look at it from a structured lunch period where it's not phys ed class out in the playground or at recess, but there will be a trained phys ed teacher organizing activities that children can participate in and really encourage and teach good physical fitness skills. Obviously, it's an issue in America right now with physical fitness and our long-term health, so that's the nature behind those minimum hours. The technology position is a shared position between the two schools that focuses in on adding additional sections of current classes that we offer right now, because we're turning children away from STEM, science, technology, engineering, math related technology classes, because there's a lot of interest in them. So adding sections at the high school and sections at the middle school would allow us to have more kids take these elective based classes, as Matt had suggested. So that is kind
Will
of
that help on that deficit, though, we also have there?
correct, yes.
Yeah, because
So
we
at
also,
mid-
we still have a state
Right.
requirement deficit in those areas.
In the middle school, we're short on the hours required for technology-related coursework, and this will help to fill that gap, almost completely to fill that gap, but will absolutely fill it.
Yeah, that's, I just want the public to know, that's what I meant by kicking the can down the road, is that we've been talking about these deficiencies for quite some time.
Right.
So that's what I meant by kicking the can down the road.
That are both legal requirements.
Correct.
You know, so it's a matter of, do we get into compliance this year or next year or the year after?
And the ramifications, as you were asking, are the state education department can come down and cite us for not meeting a mandatory required piece of the program. So.
Okay. So we'll move on to public comment on the agenda items. Any public comment on the agenda items? And then I promise you right after this, we're going to get on to tenure.
Okay. I apologize if I'm repeating anything. That's the danger of following Matt Jackson. Kathy Ciriello, Marlboro. Before you vote on the budget to be presented to the community, I'd like to touch base on this very debate. As was the addition of the .4 PE and the full-time position of a technology teacher to be shared between the two schools. These positions will bring us into compliance, and my question is, I applaud cost savings and debate when you're dealing with the budget. I'm a taxpayer and a parent. And I agree with a lot of the points made, specifically the need for free time, and during recess, these kids are under a lot of stress. They need to let go. But at what point does not meeting the state mandate impact our district in a negative way? Not only educationally, but in aid and evaluation of the district as a whole. After all, there are mandates. They're not suggestions. They're there for a reason, as Matt said, and I think that we should do everything we can to meet those so that it doesn't negatively impact the district. Educationally, meeting these two mandates is paramount to educating the kids and keeping our children healthy and competitive in the job market and in their lives in the future. I think rectifying this deficiency in our educational programs in this manner is as cost effective as possible, particularly in relation to the PE position. So it does so in a way that kills two birds with one stone. You're not negatively impacting instructional time, but you're meeting your PE mandate as well. I understand the need, and I've read the studies and looked at the studies saying that this, free unstructured play is important to mental health. But I think there's another way to look at this. Lunch and recess is quite often a gauntlet for kids on the fringe of fitting in and playing with people. This gives them the out. This gives them the opportunity to participate in physical activity while with other classmates, distracting them from, maybe they don't get picked on. Maybe they find some people that are their people. I think you need to look at it that way. It adds a mentor and a teacher and an extra set of eyes on the playground during a very dangerous time in a school day, for particularly an elementary school kid. So I hope you carefully consider keeping these positions in. I think you're killing two birds with one stone. You're doing it in the best possible way, and it keeps our district as close to being, meeting the mandates that they need. On another note, I would like to take a second to support Mr. and Mrs. Carlin on their tenure this evening. As a parent, 2 of my sons have benefited from a combined 5 years of their instruction. They're caring, they're creative, they are enthusiastic, and they're everything a teacher should be, and especially in a subject that isn't really a boy's cup of tea most of the time, and it's very dear to my heart. So congratulations, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments on the agenda items? Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel recommendations, attorney contract, OU BOCES commodities bid, donations of backpack program, financial reports for March, new board meeting dates, CSC, CPSC recommendations, Board of Ed meeting minutes of 4/4/19. Can I get a motion? James, second. Russell, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 5-0, excuse me, there's only 5 of us here. Do you want to, can we just do these and we'll, okay. So we're going to move on. Recommended actions. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, adopt the proposed 2019-2020 school year budget in the amount of $58,363,438. Can I have a motion? That's the correct number, right, Pat?
Yes.
Okay. Motion, Russell, second, James. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Property tax, we'll come back to this one. I'll give Pat another minute or two.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Property tax card, report card. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, adopt the property tax report card for the 2019-2020 as presented. Now, let me get a motion and then Pat can explain it. Russell, second. James?
So we're just going to need to amend the first line under column B, proposed budget 1920,
Yep.
to reflect that 58,363,438, which will take the percentage change to 2.59%. Everything else will remain the same.
Okay. So those, as presented with those amendments. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried 5-0. I gotta close that. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Marlborough Central School District approves the memorandum of understanding with the Hudson Valley Building and Construction Trade Council and authorizes the board president to sign the MOU subject to final recommendation of suitable terms and conditions by the district's attorneys. Can I have a motion? John Marrow, second. James. So this is we talked about this briefly, this is to enter in an agreement to do a study so that if we're going to do the capital program, whether or not a project labor agreement would be beneficial to the district or not. So this is just a study, no commitment to do anything, but to see if a project labor agreement would be beneficial to the district, if the capital project is approved.
And when would the timing of this be, the study?
Well, they start looking at, our architects start looking at all of that based on it now, but that's just part of the process. And then if the project's approved, they'll be ready to do a presentation to us, and then we would go from there.
They being the Trades Council?
No.
So the study happens
No.
before
No.
or after?
What we'll have to do is identify, if the project passes, we'll have to identify a company to do the study for us.
Right.
And then that study would be returned for the board's consideration in the next few months. And then if that is considered by the board, that information is considered by the board in determining whether or not you want to have a project labor agreement.
And this is the study to determine that?
This is an MOU saying that we will do the study.
But not with whom? Just a
Correct.
study?
Correct. We'll do an RFP for the study.
Okay, and then that's when the study would uncover the value, the benefits, the
There
details.
are several firms out
commitments.
there. Our architectural firm will help guide us in firms to use. There are certainly some that are recommended in this choice here too, but it'll also be out through the facilities committee. I mean, Pat's gonna bring this through the facilities.
So just curious, why are we doing this now instead of like the MOU, rather than after the vote itself?
Because this allows us to get prepared. That
Okay,
way
just gives us some
we
extra
can
time.
get going. I mean, the vote's only
okay.
3.5 weeks. So.
Right, no, understood, just curious.
Yeah, because then we get to that point, we want to be ready to hit the ground running if it gets happen, because remember, they explained those timelines, because obviously if you're going to have a project labor agreement, that's got to be built in to all those construction documents.
Understood, okay, thanks, that explains it.
Do we
Appreciate
know
it.
what a rough cost is for this kind of study to be done, that we'd be paying roughly?
I don't. No.
I don't know off the top of my head. I couldn't imagine it would be anything, considerable. And we will get RFPs, so, we'll approve that contract for the study before it's actually conducted.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried 5-0. OU BOCES, resolved that the Board of Education cast its vote to approve the Orange Ulster BOCES 1920 administrative budget in the amount of $7,403,793, and that the district clerk is hereby authorized to execute the certification of such vote and transmit such certification to Orange Ulster BOCES district clerk. Can I have a motion? John Morrow, second. John Cantone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried 5-0. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of school, cast its vote for William Boss, Joseph Byrne, and Edward Estrada to the Board of Cooperative Education Services. Can I have a motion? James, second. John Cantone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried 5-0. So before we move on to the last little piece, now we will take a break to recognize our tenured teachers that we just voted on.
So in case you didn't notice it, when we had the consent agenda, there's a personnel agenda item in there, and one of the items on the personnel agenda is to approve tenure. So I'm very happy to say that the slate of folks that were up for tenure tonight were just awarded tenure. So congratulations. Mr. Bakatsias has some information he'd like to share with the public about our slate of tenure candidates for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Thank you, Board of Education. Good evening, everyone. This is an exciting time for the district and certainly for those candidates. Folks, when you hear your name, you'll come up and stand next to me, but you will also progress after the announcements and introductions to the center, just like the students of the month did for your picture. Our first candidate works in the elementary school. She is a teaching assistant. Some of the conversations around her recommendations included very passionate about children of all ages, but we're very fortunate to have her in our elementary school. Additionally, she is someone who really you can count on to, if administration needs another set of hands or needs assistance in the building, they certainly can go to this person. She's a rock and definitely a mainstay of our teaching assistant corps. Please join me in a round of applause for Gina Hansett, our tenure candidate. So our community speaker earlier alluded to the Carlins, and this is the first one. This is in no particular order, it's just how the list is. But he's a teacher in our middle school, English teacher, has made a tremendous impact in that school. We talk often about the middle school teacher. That's a particular set of traits when you're dealing with 11 to 14-year-olds. So we know that's a difficult challenge. Some of the conversation in the recommendation for this gentleman include engaging lessons, really available after school, and provides lots of opportunities for all students. So we're very proud of Hayden Carlin, English teacher at the middle school, receives tenure. Another bright star at Marlboro Elementary School is a special ed teacher. She has an infectious smile. We're extremely happy with her technical skill when it comes to special education, as she works really in coordination with so many teachers and really adds to the educational knowledge base of that elementary school. Please, a round of applause for Jennifer Fox, tenure candidate, Marlboro Elementary School. Next individual teaches English speakers of other languages. She works in our middle school, but I will tell you that this individual has really made us all better people and more aware of the students she serves, which are non-native speakers to the English language. So they're coming from all different countries. Some of the recommendations and part of the discussions really include an advocate for these children, someone who has so many strategies and has really taught us all, from staff to faculty to administration, how to better serve the needs of these students. Please, a round of applause for Raquel Piazza, ESOL, Marlboro Middle School. Another English star at our Marlboro High School, and another Carlin. This individual, again, engaging lessons, some of the discussions around her recommendation really included lessons that are very thought-provoking, challenges our students to think outside the box, and really poses a lot of real-world type of questions and discussion. And again, really keeps those students engaged. Please join me in a round of applause for Nicole Carlin, Marlboro High School English tenure. The final recipient of tenure this evening is, she is certified childhood elementary, but she works in our middle school, which means she serves our 6th grade students. She teaches English and social studies in that building. Again, extremely high energy. Some of the recommendations, discussions included not just engaging lessons, but really challenges kids, really thinks about the whole child, and makes so many opportunities available beyond the school day for these kids. A round of applause for Nicole Worster, Marlboro Middle School, childhood education tenure area. I'm gonna ask you for one final applause, and then we'll take their picture. But most of these candidates went through 4 years of evaluation, observation, discussion. And I will tell you that our superintendent, Mr. Brooks, takes the recommendation from principals. Principals make the recommendation for tenure to the superintendent, takes it very seriously. So all these folks up here are the best of the best. They've been vetted, and we're proud to have them on board.
I'd actually like to take that one step a little bit farther, because there are certainly the mechanics of evaluation that are very important, and I take evaluation very seriously. I'm a former principal, former assistant superintendent for instruction. Instruction is in my core. I've observed all of them, except for the teaching assistants. I'm sorry, I don't observe teaching assistants, but all the teaching staff, I observe all years of their tenure process. So this year we have 46 untenured teachers, so I observed 46 teachers this year. I'm so proud of this group, because one of the standards beyond the mechanics of evaluation that I insist on with our administrative staff, and I put my own personal touch on that when we all have our time together after your observation, is no one makes it to tonight if you wouldn't put your child in their classroom. So there are people that aren't here tonight because they haven't met that standard. And it's a hard standard to quantify, but I know by the shakes of the heads, it's one that you can easily qualify. So I'm proud to say that this is a quality group of people that I would absolutely put my child with. Actually, either one of my children with. So congratulations, I'm proud to call you tenured teachers.
After our congratulations, there will be coffee, cake, and refreshments, so please stay around.
Okay, we're going to get right back in here. Is there any old business? Anybody have any old business? Any new business?
I had just one thing on new business I just wanted to put out there for future consideration. With the passage of the state budget, there's now an allowable sub-fund reserve for the ERS reserve. There's a TRS reserve. So you could expect in a future meeting, we'll probably be presenting a resolution to establish that reserve.
Great, finally. It's finally nice to hear that they're passing something that actually will help us.
Absolutely.
Which is our largest budget is the TRS. And
yes.
Rather than some of the other crazy stuff they've come up with. Any other items? Recognition of district residents and others. Okay, the only thing that I have to add is we don't have a meeting on May 2nd, reminder for everybody, because the people that are here are usually the ones that come to the meetings. We do have the meeting on the 9th for the people that are running this year. There'll be an opportunity on the 9th to speak at the board meeting. If somebody can't make it on the 9th and they'd like to speak at the next meeting, that's fine. We do still have 2 meetings before the election, but the planned thing for the candidates would be on the 9th. And we have no executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
We have one meeting before the budget. The 9th, and then the 23rd is our next meeting. The budget's the 21st, right? Oh, we have
9
it on
and
the
16th?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because
We moved both of them?
we only moved the one. The 16th is our scheduled meeting, 1st and 3rd. We just moved the meeting on the 2nd to the 9th.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And then we have officially have a meeting on the night of the vote.
Yeah.
For hopefully 5 minutes. So, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Russell, second. Jane.